The anime begins with a dream of Noctis Lucis Calum about his past dealing with a monster named Merilith that makes him sprawl. Noctis is the crown prince of the Lucis kingdom. Thanks to the help of the royal troops, his life was saved. Although it can be saved, it seems that Noctis has been so badly injured that he can only lie weakly on an altar and end up unconscious. In his dream, he can see his father, who is a king of the kingdom of Lucis, calling his unconscious name. The dream ended when he was woken up by his friend. Noctis apparently just woke up from his dream when he was driving a car to stop by a town called Keem to meet his future wife, Lunafreya, who is an oracle and childhood friend of Noctis who lives in Altisha City. On the trip, he was accompanied by 3 friends named Prompto Argentum, Gladiolus Amicitia, and Ignis Scientia. Prompto and Ignis were sitting in the front seat, while Gladiolus and Noctis were in the back seat. Noctis asked his friends if they had arrived in Keem City. One of them stated that they had not reached Keem yet. They then decided to rest while refueling in a rest area. They arrived at a rest area to order food from a waiter. Noctis' identity at that time was almost revealed, but Gladiolus handled it well. Noctis did leave the Lucis kingdom for no reason. They finished their food while chatting. Their conversation was dominated by a small feud between Ignis and Gladiolus, who commented on Noctis' spoiled nature. Meanwhile, they suddenly heard the news from the radio channel that the Lucis kingdom was under the rule of the Nilfheim Empire and that the capital was in ruins in the aftermath of the occupation. This prompted Noctis to leave his kingdom, which was almost completely controlled by the Nilfheim Empire. Hearing this, they rushed to continue their journey. During the journey, Noctis contemplates the state of his kingdom. He did not expect their capital to be attacked at this time. The war between the Lucis kingdom and the Nilfheim kingdom had indeed been going on for quite some time. This also makes Noctis travel all the way to Keem City to reach the neutral zone. Night came. Noctis, Prompto, Gladiolus, and Ignis decided to rest and set up a tent in a resting place. They sat in front of the bonfire while eating the dinner that Ignis had prepared. During their break, they discussed the increasingly desperate situation in their kingdom. Prompto was seen several times taking pictures from his camera in the middle of their dinner. He stated that the picture would be a memorable memory of their trip. Noctis then expressed his gratitude to his friends who had made this trip. It was getting late, and they decided to rest because there was still a long way to go to Keem City. The next day, when they were continuing their journey, they suddenly saw the Nilfheim Imperial airship fleet flying not far from their vehicle. The fear they had feared came to pass. They were surprised by the Magitech troops that had descended from the airship fleet, already blocking their way to Keem City. They immediately hid behind a cliff to plan an attack strategy against the Magitech troops. This put them in a state where they had no choice but to fight the Magitech army immediately. Ignis then instructed them to start the fight. They began to arm themselves. Departing from Ignis' orders, Noctis begins his attack on the Magitech army, followed by Prompto and Gladiolus. Magitech troops can be defeated easily by Noctis and friends. But apparently, the defeat of the Magitech army was only the beginning of the real fight. The Magitech troops had already prepared a trap for them. This is marked by the presence of a cargo that apparently contains other Magitech troops, and it turns out that in the cargo a figure familiar to Noctis appears. She is Merilith. Seeing Merilith's figure, Noctis was furious. Noctis' wrath is based on his past grudge, where he almost died from Merilith's attack. He immediately attacked Merilith with all the strength he had. Ignis, who is aware of their opponent, also helps Noctis in his battle. Then the scene returns to their journey before the attack from the Magitech army. Prompto, who was driving at that time, was suddenly startled by a wild deer crossing in the middle of the road. The incident caused their vehicle to veer off the highway. Ignis, who was sitting next to Prompto, ordered him to be careful. However, Ignis' suggestion was ignored by Prompto, who suddenly ran out of the car. Prompto then approached a small dog whose leg was injured and lying on the roadside. Seeing this, he immediately treated the wound on the dog. The dog apparently reminded Prompto of his past when he was in school. Prompto was the fat and quiet kid in his class when he was still in school, in contrast to Noctis, who is more popular and is approached by many girls. But Noctis is not a person who likes popularity. He always went alone for various reasons. After school, Prompto does his hobby, namely photography. One time when he came home from school, he saw a puppy whose leg was injured. Seeing this, he felt compassion and treated the wound on the dog's leg. The dog's paw was wrapped in a cloth, and Prompto took him home for further treatment. Arriving home, Prompto gave food to the puppy, and he intended to make a notification to find out the puppy's owner. Prompto also didn't forget to take some photos of the puppy. He seemed closer to the puppy he later named Chibi the following days. Prompto fed him and also bathed him. At one point, he woke up in the middle of his sleep and found Chibi not in his place. Prompto, who panicked, then tried to find Chibi in all corners of the city. Somewhere else, a girl found her dog suddenly running into the yard. In the yard, her dog named Prina appears. Prina is a puppy who disappeared and was saved by Prompto. The girl saw a cloth wrapped around the dog with Prompto's name. The next day, Prompto got a letter. It turned out to be Lunafreya, who thanked him for taking care of her lost dog. In addition, Lunafreya, who is also Noctis' fiancée, asks Prompto to befriend Noctis. A letter from Lunafreya made Prompto begin to approach Noctis. Noctis was standing in the corner of the school when Prompto approached him. The clumsy Prompto accidentally fell, and Noctis reflexively helped him. While helping, Noctis commented that Prompto's body was too big. Soon the school bell rang, and Noctis rushed back to his class. At Noctis' words, Prompto contemplated and determined to take care of his body. He started his training regardless of time and weather. Thanks to his persistence, finally at some point, he had reached his ideal weight when he was approaching his teens. With this ideal weight, he ventured to start approaching Noctis. Noctis, who has a good personality, has considered Prompto as a friend for a long time. But in their teens, this is the point where Noctis and Prompto become friends. Then, back to the time when Prompto was treating dogs by the roadside. He gave the ointment and then hurried on his way. Then back when the battle between Noctis, Gladiolus, Ignis and Prompto fought against the Magitech troops in the middle of their journey. In this battle, the focus is on Gladiolus, who is Noctis' instructor. Gladiolus suddenly remembered his past when he was still in the kingdom of Lucis. Noctis was young then, and he didn't really like Noctis because he was considered arrogant. He revealed this to his sister named Iris. Gladiolus then comments that Noctis is unfit to succeed his father as king. The next day, Iris unexpectedly approached Gladiolus at the palace and said she wanted to play with Noctis. Gladiolus, who heard this, then told his sister to wait. While Iris was waiting, she was distracted by a cat running around the palace grounds and chased after it. It turned out that when Iris chased the cat, Noctis saw this, and he followed her secretly because he was worried about Iris. And sure enough, apparently, Iris, who was busy chasing the cat, didn't realize that she had fallen and was injured in the courtyard of the Lucis Kingdom Palace. Noctis, who managed to follow Iris, immediately helped her and brought Iris back to the palace. The incident even made Noctis, who was considered to have violated the code of ethics of the nobility, be punished. Iris, who had been helped by Noctis, seemed to disagree with the punishment that Noctis had to receive. She then tells her brother that Noctis is innocent and that he is a good boy. At first Gladiolus didn't believe it, but Iris insisted on convincing him. Gladiolus approached Noctis in his room and invited him to practice swordsmanship. This exercise then made Gladiolus and Noctis close. Returning to the battle at hand, this time, the focus shifts from Gladiolus to Ignis. Once, Noctis, Gladiolus, Ignis and Prompto took a break from their journey. Ignis is a confidant of the Lucis kingdom. It was then responsible for preparing food for all of them. Ignis is someone who cooks for Noctis, Gladiolus and Prompto. Apparently, before they started their journey together, Ignis had long been trusted as an assistant in the Lucis kingdom. He is responsible for preparing Noctis' food and providing political reports to Noctis' father. At one point, Noctis asked Ignis to make him a childhood cake. According to Noctis, Ignis' cakes are pretty good, besides taking care of Noctis' life. In addition, Ignis is also responsible for cleaning up Noctis' place. Noctis is not a neat person. He always leaves his room messy, and Ignis orders him to separate the garbage in his room. Ignis then attended a political meeting, and Noctis' father, alias the king, gave him a special mandate to accompany Noctis. The king's mandate was due to the king's declining health condition. The king wanted Noctis to be ready to become king before the war began. In the mentoring process carried out by Ignis, they sometimes had arguments because he did not focus on preparing himself as a candidate for king. This is due to Noctis' fear of his father's death. This feud between Ignis and Noctis is known to Gladiolus. Gladiolus tries to mediate between Ignis and Noctis. Noctis told Gladiolus that he did not like the news that his father would die soon. Gladiolus, who knows this, tells Ignis to understand Noctis' feelings. Over time, Noctis and Ignis could master themselves and understand each other. They have become close to this day. Then back again to Noctis' angry attack on Merilith, who is a snake woman from the demon race. Noctis' attack on Merilith didn't play out, but Merilith can always break his attacks. His friends who saw this asked Noctis to back off. Noctis, who heard the request of his friends, then ignored it. He is still controlled by his past grudges. This past grudge started from when Noctis and his guards returned to the palace from a trip. But unexpectedly, their journey suddenly saw an explosion in front of the car he was driving. Apparently, the explosion was the start of a sudden attack by the demon race, which in this case is Merilith. His bodyguards immediately formed a formation to protect Noctis, who was the prince of the Lucis kingdom. Merilith suddenly attacks Noctis' group and causes Noctis to fall almost dead. Merilith's attack also resulted in the death of many of the royal troops. Seeing this, Noctis' father did not remain silent and launched the arsenal of soul attack, which was able to defeat Merilith and fall into the abyss. Noctis then wakes up and returns to the present, where he is directly fighting Merilith. Merilith is not an easy person to defeat because, in the end, she made Noctis fall into the ocean from the cliff where they fought. Ignis, Gladiolus and Prompto did not remain silent and immediately attacked Merilith from various sides. Meanwhile, Noctis, who was drowning, suddenly had a sight of his father. He then gets the power that was exhausted due to fighting Merilith relentlessly. This greater power gave him a strong push until he could rise from the sinking and immediately lunged at Merilith, who was currently facing Noctis' friends. Noctis then launches an arsenal of soul attack that cuts off Merilith's head. The battle ended because of Merilith's death. Noctis, who managed to defeat Merilith, then stood on the cliff edge and reminisced about his father. Their journey continued to the city of Altisha. The four of them realized there was still a long way to go. The moral that can be learned from this movie is that friendship can help us go further to carry out a rescue mission.